What's up, everybody? Welcome into stream. Nice to see everybody here. I'm super excited for this one today. But yeah, welcome in. We are going to be painting with acrylic today. And just let me know if you can hear me okay. I got a new mic and unfortunately I have to move it around, but hopefully you can hear me. Hello, hello. Welcome in. Broken Wing Zeal. Yes, you are first. Thanks for being here early. And welcome in, Starburst. I see some regulars. And hello, Vin and Scarlett. So this weekend, both our mods are busy. So we have some new mods. So please join me in welcoming Scarlett. And thanks, Vin, for popping in as well. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for being here today. We are going to be, well, I'm going to be painting in acrylic, and we're going to be doing some Studio Ghibli fan art today. And I'm sure that you guys are looking forward to this, as am I. And it's going to be a pretty, pretty beginner-friendly stream. So if you don't know who we are Wing Canvas. Our mission is to make art education easily accessible to everyone. So tune in live for free lessons every weekend, Saturday and Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you didn't know, our growing community is full of art nerds. We are actually a school of illustration. And if you're an art nerd too, be sure to check out the links in our social media. And yeah, if you happen to be creating along with us, definitely share your creations. We would love to see them. We are most active on Discord, so you can join our Discord for lots of free resources, a wonderful community. And you can post your artwork there. You know, if you're not sure about something, we have an amazing, vibrant, growing art nerd community there to help you and support you, as well as our wonderful mods. So definitely join the Discord, but you can also find us on Instagram and Facebook, and we're on TikTok and all that stuff. So what are we going to be doing today? Let me see here. So those of you who have voted in our polls, if you are a YouTube subscriber, you will get to see all of our polls as well as be part of our live stream, so you can help us decide what to paint. So I was so torn this week about which Studio Ghibli creature to paint, because there's so many quirky and wonderful creatures, and I was so sure that Totoro was going to win. Like, I was like, I am so sure, that Totoro's probably the most popular, and I was very pleasantly surprised that you guys chose Ponyo. So if you haven't seen Ponyo before, Ponyo is such a wonderful story. It's actually funny because it's like about this 5-year-old boy falling in love with this little fish creature and, taking care of her. And then this entire movie is also about, the effects that we have on the environment. And it's just beautifully animated, lots of scenes on water and all that stuff. So if you haven't seen it, definitely put it on your to-watch list. Let me know in the chat which Studio Ghibli film is your favorite. Like an Arts voted for Cat Bus. Cat Bus would be a good one. I had this idea of, like, if you guys chose Cat Bus, I would have put other Studio Ghibli characters inside. And then I thought, oh my gosh, that would that would be really cute. But Howl's Moving Castle, oh yeah, I know. The castle itself is so amazing. And beautifully designed. We're going to be drawing castles in my drawing foundations class, actually, which I'm excited about. Okay, so that's what won the poll. And actually, if you didn't know, our classes are starting this week. They actually started today. So fall term classes started today. Exclamation point classes. So I'm teaching drawing foundations 2 this term, going back to the basics. If you want to learn realism or you want to learn painting techniques, it all starts with drawing, right? So if you can draw, and you know the fundamentals, then you can really do anything. So yeah, if you want to join me, my class is Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and it starts this week. All right. And also, I have to talk about the new student perk. So if you join as a full-term student this year, we are introducing live critique. So if you join for the full term, you can get VIP member access. So same access as the Patreon VIP tier, which gives you free weekly critiques that they are live, and you get to run your artwork by all of our instructors. So that's a really, really cool perk that we're just introducing this term. So definitely, if you haven't registered yet, it is your last week to do so and get this perk. And we also have our membership perks. So membership is, gets you access to members only chats, and also like class recordings, and you get to see some behind the scenes of our video drafts and all that stuff. So if you want to help support the channel or accelerate your learning, consider becoming a member. Okay, so let's do the features. So this month's challenge is fantasy creatures. This is probably like the most popular topic. This is the most popular topic, I think. And, we have a lot of character artists and, aspiring illustrators in our community. So if you haven't yet created or submitted your fantasy creature design to our Discord, you still have a chance to do so. We're only halfway through September. And even if it's old artwork, you don't always have to make something new. You can post what you already have. A lot of our community does that. So I have 3 people to feature today. And here is who won. These are my picks. So Loot Gremlin. Loot Gremlin. Loot Gremlin, if you are here, I absolutely adore your fruit flies. When I saw this, I was like, that's so cute, and just so, such a simple idea, but super sweet and cute little illustrations. And so I really love the little blueberry fly. I just, flies are just like an annoying pest. I really don't like flies, but I really like these flies. So you did a really good job making them fun and quirky and simple. So shout out to you, Luke Gremlin. Love these. Second submission is by Scream on the Discord. I just thought this was so well done. It's a lion shark, and quite literally lion shark. But I just love the use of the limited color and the transitions, and how you did all of your line art in the blue. It just really, makes the piece very unified as a whole. And I love how the lion is just like chillaxing, and then his tail is wrapping around him. It's nice composition, nicely executed. So great job, Scream. Oh, artist in chat. Which artist? Oh, Scream. Nice. Yeah, nice work. Love this creature. I would like to see more of your designs on the Discord, and thank you for submitting. Okay, so our third submission is by Lichen Arts, Lichen Arts 31. So when I saw this, I was like, wow, this is really cool with the pop-up, and how you sort of transformed this piece on paper into a 3D piece. And when I looked at it closely, I was like, did they do the wings digitally? Did they draw the traditional piece and either run out of space or had this idea initially and then finish the wings up digitally? Let me know if you're in the chat. Oh, artist in chat. Hi, Lichen Arts. Oh, you've burned, ripped, and lost this piece. Oh no. Well, at least now it's on YouTube forever. But I really like this piece. I like the character. I like the style of it. So it's all traditional. Okay, so the wings were also glued on with paper then? Because I thought you did it digitally. Like, I was like, oh, cool. They just like did the wings digitally. That would have been really cool. But yeah, you tricked me. But anyway, I really like this piece, and I love seeing traditional artwork on the stream and traditional artwork in submissions on the Discord. So keep those coming. Okay, so I guess it's painting time. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm going to be painting in acrylics today, but you guys can paint in, you know, whatever medium you're most comfortable with. I just really like acrylic because it's just so easy to work with. It's so forgiving, and it's just sort of my go-to, even though I work with all types of paints. So I actually first started learning oil paints. Oils were my first medium, and then I started experimenting with acrylics, and then after that came gouache. I had to do a lot of gouache in university. Really challenging to learn, but once you kind of learn it, it's great. It's very easy once you get the hang of it. So I'm just using some student grade paints. So these are not expensive. Acrylics can be very, very affordable. So I like the Liquitex basics. I'm a Liquitex girl. Like, I've used Golden stuff as well. Those are kind of like the top two acrylic brands. And back in the studio, when we had our physical location, we had these jars of paints, and they're just by Rayotech. So Tri Arts is the brand, and these ones are just like, you know, you get a lot, and you can put the paints back, whereas with the squeeze tubes, you can't. The only thing with the jars, though, is that it can dry if you don't put the lids on properly. So you just got to make sure that the lids are on, and you got to wipe the lids, and otherwise when the acrylic dries, it's kind of like a glue, and it's impossible to get the lids off. All right, so Luke Gremlin, welcome in. How much did you miss? You didn't miss much. We are just starting. I just kind of took out some white and blue for now, and this picture that you see up here is not actually the final piece. It's just a reference picture for the color scheme that I'll be using. So let me show you some of the pictures that I sourced of Ponyo. So this is the cover art. And then you can also, like, I thought it would be really fun to do something like this, like Ponyo floating in a jellyfish up to the surface. And if you haven't seen the movie before, Ponyo exists in 3 forms. So a fish, a sort of in-between, kind of between like a frog and a chicken. So this is like her transition between her human phase and her fish phase. And then, of course, the cute little 5-year-old human. And so these are Ponyo in all 3 forms. And I really wanted to paint the fish, Ponyo in fish form, because I think it's like, you know, she's this little fish princess that gets lost and wants to turn into a human, kind of like a Little Mermaid story, but way cuter and a lot more a lot more sweet and interesting of a story. Even though, like, I'm a big Little Mermaid fan. That was like my first Disney movie, but like Ponyo is the cute factor is just superior. Yeah, so these are kind of the references I sourced. And then there's some other references like here, let's see. Then I have Ponyo in water. So I kind of wanted to paint her in this bubble, and I wanted some references because I wasn't really sure which pose to put them in. But if you're going to be painting along with me, like, feel free to, you know, paint exactly what I'm painting. That's totally cool. Or you can sort of make up your own composition and just follow along. The techniques should still apply. All right, so this blue that I took out is actually called phthalo blue, and it's one of my essential blues. So I only use 2 blues. I don't use green. I don't use primary blue. I use phthalo blue and ultramarine blue because they have slightly different hues. The phthalo blue it's closer to cyan. So if I mixed it with white, it would be this cyan color. And it kind of is a little bit closer to green. And so if you've taken my classes before, or if you've painted with me at all, you know that I typically like to paint the background first. I find that it just sets the tone of the piece early and sort of makes everything a little bit easier. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, is just tone the canvas. Oh my gosh, all the featured artists are here. That's awesome. I hope you guys are all going to do a painting with me or some type of art with me. If you're doing this digitally, then obviously it's just kind of like you choose a color and click, one click, and the whole background is toned. So you'll need to wait until I actually have a chance to finish this. Okay. So I'm just mixing this color. This is just phthalo blue with white. And what I'm doing is just painting my entire canvas with this blue. Quinn says, I've never actually watched a Studio Ghibli film, which I feel is a crime. Oh my goodness. Start today. Ponyo's a really good one. My favorite Studio Ghibli film is probably Spirited Away. I think that was the first Studio Ghibli film I've ever seen, and I was like so enthralled. Like, I've never seen anything quite like it. If you haven't seen one of Miyazaki's films, just the way that he even crafts the stories are just so different than the conventional cartoons. And the characters are all so interesting and simple. And obviously the background art is beautiful, just breathtaking. And so simple. Highly recommend it. Ponyo didn't do too well at the US box office. Oh, well, that's too bad. Sometimes they don't do well. And I read on the wiki page that it was like a $34 million production. And that's, you know, that's a lot of time. It takes years to do, which I'm sure animation in general is going to be more and more inexpensive to make with all the new tools that we have, and, you know, all the, not just like the new animation tools, but also like with AI and all that, it might enable single animators and artists to bring their characters to life a lot more easily. So that could be good or bad, depending on how you look at it, I guess. But either way, it shouldn't take the joy out of creating. Quinn says, I've been waiting to tell you I watched the expressions video and I loved it. Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny in that video. Oh, well, our editor, actually, Emily, did an amazing job just having fun with the very low budget animation in the beginning. It was very creative. So definitely a team effort. Are you putting paint on a table or something? I can't tell, and I sincerely hope not. This, good question. This is newsprint on top of my table. There's probably a figure drawing on the back that's like a gesture drawing that I'm throwing away. But yeah, it's newsprint. Thank you for your concern about my table. That's very sweet. It's giving Bob Ross, but make it Studio Ghibli. We'll see. I don't know what it's gonna look like yet, but that's part of the fun, right? Hey, Bread Panda. Nice to see you. Welcome in and thank you for dropping by. And all right, so while we wait for this to dry, it's a little bit painterly. That's okay. I'm gonna do some composition studies and kind of figure out exactly what I'll be painting today. And I have my water right here. A tip is if you're painting in acrylics, it's always better to remove the paint from your brush before you dunk it in the water. So sometimes, like, I'll do this with a palette knife. Like, I'll literally put my brush down and just like scrape the paint off with a palette knife, save the paint, and then wash my brush. Because otherwise you kind of contaminate your water, and then everything has like a blue tinge to it. Or worse, like a gray tinge to it. So trick is to keep your water clean. All right, so any of you guys painting in acrylics with me? Or are you kind of just like doing your own thing? All right, while we let this dry, and it'll be dry in like 5 minutes or so. Ooh, I see some like white flecks in the canvas, so I'm gonna get rid of those. The reason I like to tone my canvas is like, I hate seeing the little white flecks that sort of peek out through the canvas. It drives me nuts. And then fixing them afterwards just takes way too long. Just like it takes too much time. And so I find that when I start with a color, it just gives me really good context. And B, helps me complete the painting faster. Okay. Hey, little kitten. What kind of paper is good for acrylics? I have some that I've never used. So it depends on how much water you use. So some acrylics are low viscosity and some are high viscosity. So for example, this paint I have here by Liquitex, it's medium viscosity, but to me, it's actually high viscosity, meaning like it's very liquidy, but it's concentrated. So it has really good pigment. Whereas some acrylics are more thicker, so they're low viscosity, which means like if you don't add water to it, it can have a lot of texture or can be very sticky. So you can paint acrylics on anything. Like you can paint on wood, you can paint on rock, on plastic, on whatever, which makes acrylic really, really versatile. But I would just say thick paper. Any kind of thick paper would be good. Taping it down would also be good because sometimes if you use too much water, it'll buckle. Like the paper will kind of start to curl and then get all bumpy, and then it's just really annoying to work with. Same thing as watercolor. Joe Road said, just watching, never tried acrylic. That's okay. You can always try it. It's super cheap. You can get acrylics at, like, acrylics and acrylic brushes. Somebody asked about acrylic brushes. I honestly, I got these brushes as, like, I got them free on Temu. And it's the first time I'm buying off that site. I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna get some kind of throwaway cheap brushes because acrylic will ruin your brush. So I used to use the same brushes for acrylic as I did for oil, and then it just kind of ruined my nice brushes. So I would say if you're just starting out, just get like a very cheap set of brushes. Like the nylon brushes are fine. There's softer brushes and stiffer brushes, so these ones are a little bit softer. The acrylic paint will kind of stiffen up your brushes. Like if you don't wash them well, they tend to stiffen up gradually anyway. So okay, just grabbing my pencil here. Okay, so I was thinking about doing a composition that, well, obviously it's going to be like horizontal, but I'm just kind of working out what I'm going to actually be painting and how I want to compose the picture. So I want to base it off of, let me just change the picture here. So I want to base it off of this image, and I kind of picture Ponyo in this bubble. So I would sort of put them in the middle, right? Maybe like put them here, and I'd say like head would be here, and sort of fish-like. Sort of like a little star. Luckily, it has very, very simple shapes. I'm not a huge fan of the face, like just the kind of blank face. I kind of want the face to be more like looking at us, and I really like the sense of wonder. So Ponyo's face in all of her forms, I think, is sort of, you know, it's based on a circle. And then it kind of, you know, dips in on either side. So you can start with a circle and then start to alter the circle, right? So you're just like, basically, if you were sculpting Ponyo, it would be, you would start with a ball and then you would just sort of just pinch the ball, right? And then for her face, her eyes are really far apart, which gives her the cuteness. And so I would probably do something like this. I don't think Ponyo has a nose. It's just like a dot. And so I want this type of wonder expression. So I want this face with this sort of composition with the jellies behind her. And I'll probably change up the composition a little bit and just put in some some jellies sort of around her like this. So there's ample negative space around that. And the jellies actually have this really cool pattern to them. So I'm just going to do a quick sketch of a jelly. Jellyfish are so cool looking. Like sometimes you'll see them on the beach, and they're just like these like little bubbles. And I know some of them can be dangerous, but I can't help myself. If I see a jellyfish on the beach, I'll poke it. But it kind of looks like a mushroom. Like it doesn't really have these long tentacles, but I'll see. Like maybe I'll extend them. But the jellies in the movie are actually like the tentacles are sort of contained within the jellyfish itself. So we'll see. Like an Art says, I've spent $30 on paintbrushes. They fell apart before I even used them. Oh no, how did they fall apart? Like, did this part fall off? Did this part fall off? Because like that's common. If it falls off, then you can just glue it. I've glued a lot of paintbrushes. So yeah, you can always glue them together. If it's like the bristles, like if you have hairs falling out of your paintbrush, that's normal for new brushes. So before you use them, you should just like pull out some of the stray hairs. And I've known some people to sort of cut the top of their brush as well. Like I don't really do that because it has a natural point to it, like a natural edge. But sometimes, you can use brushes that are kind of gnarly. You can use them for painting textures and trees and stuff like that. Quinn says, how do you get motivated to draw when you really just aren't feeling up to it, but something has to get done? Oh, that's a hard question. Like, if you're really not feeling up for it, it can be really tough because sometimes you're just, we're not always creative. Sometimes we're just kind of burnt out, right? And so I don't know. I try not to force myself unless I have an assignment, right? Or unless I'm streaming, like with you guys. I've already committed to doing it, right? So if I woke up this morning thinking, oh my gosh, I really don't want to stream, but then I think of all of you lovely people in our community, and it just kind of amps me up to do it. So usually, like if I commit to something, I'll do it. But I would say like maybe don't force yourself unless you have a deadline. Closet Gremlin Vibing says, I need to cut a piece of watercolor paper for my sketchbook so alcohol markers don't bleed through 3 or 4 pages. Yeah, that's the thing about alcohol markers. But if you're using watercolor paper that's quite thick, it should be okay. Okay, so I kind of decided that this would be my composition. I don't typically draw too many sketches or like a drawing that's super, super detailed, because I like to just kind of paint them in flat. And so what I usually will do is just kind of figure out how I've grouped everything. I want to look at my positive and negative shape. And generally, I want Ponyo to be in the middle, sort of near the top. And compositionally, if you like the grid, where like you do like a 3x3 grid, a very kind of no-fail way to compose a picture is to put your subject on one of these intersecting lines, right? So this is kind of a common way for people to approach composition. So it's kind of, it's a little bit easier if you're just a beginner. So I'm gonna put Ponyo's face there, and then sort of, you know, put shapes around her that don't really interfere with the main shape of my subject. All right, so she's going to be in a bubble like this. Let's see here. Stinks that I'll have to miss a big chunk of the stream because of work. Don't worry, you can watch the replay. All of our streams will still live on the channel, and you can watch it later. Okay, so I kind of figured out roughly what I'm going to do with my composition, sort of the expression that I want to give to her. So if I'm going to be drawing this expression on a face that's sort of, you know, like in the reference picture, she's kind of facing down, right? She's got this sort of, this type of perspective. And so I'm either going to change the perspective of her face or try to put this expression on this face. So again, it would kind of be like cheeks would be here, and then the eyes would kind of be here, and the nose, and then the mouth. So just kind of putting it in a 3/4 view, and then her hair. And I don't think Ponyo has eyebrows at all. But Ponyo, I always thought that Ponyo was based off of the word Pengyo in Chinese. In Mandarin, actually, Pengyo means friend in Chinese. It's actually pronounced like this. Pengyo. Like this. So I always thought that it was friend in Chinese, but it's not. It's actually, I read a quote on the wiki page about Miyazaki naming this character Ponyo because of the cute and cuddly and like buoyant character. So has nothing to do with the sound. All right. How do you control the amount of water you put when you watercolor? It depends on the type of pigment that you're using, and it depends on the paper, and depends on what technique you're using. So, you know, there's no specific answer. It's kind of like trial and error. So play around with it. Usually you would use less water as you layer, right? So the first layer you may use a lot of water, and then the second layer less water, and then less and less water. Quinn's having art block. Oh no. Oh, you know what, a lot of art block has to do with mindset. If you know what, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. You're right either way, right? So you kind of have to trick your brain a little bit. First of all, you want to identify like what is causing the art block. Are you just kind of burnt out? Do you need to, you know, go to a museum, watch a great movie? How do you want to inspire yourself? You know, because like creative people can't be creative all the time. We're like a battery. We need to be charged, right? So don't be too hard on yourself. It's okay to take a break. Like, I certainly don't draw every day or paint every day. I used to, but that doesn't mean, you know, I know there's a lot of pressure, and there's like a lot of advice on YouTube that says you have to draw every day, and like, Sure, you get better if you draw every day, but don't, you know, make that, don't turn that into pressure, right? Because it can be very overwhelming. Studio Ghibli films aren't available on Netflix in the US, and I'm upset. Oh no. Yeah, I know they're available on Crunchyroll. And I can't remember actually where I saw or how I saw Spirited Away. I can't even remember. I don't think I saw it in theaters. I think I might have like rented it. Joe Road, you said it. Inspiration comes in its own time. You can't call it to come to you like you do your dog. You know what? That's why I love dogs. They're just always there for you. But yeah, that's totally true. Like, I think the best way to beat art block is to just fill your void with amazing artwork. And you know, for me, it's movies, films, animations. I love also just going to galleries, local galleries, museums, and personally, I like to look at stuff that's different than what I'm doing. Like if I'm, you know, stuck on an idea for a piece or something, I would probably like not I would avoid artists that have a similar style that I want to create, like, because usually, you know, you think, oh, they're so much better than me, like I'm never gonna get here, and then you start comparing, and that's always like not a good not good. Right? Because then you start comparing. Like, it's never good to compare. But if you look at artwork that's like totally different than what you would normally create, it's a lot of fun because it can, you know, get you to try new things and not as much pressure. So that's just a personal thing. What is your favorite animal to draw every time? Dogs. I had 2 dogs and a cat, so I just love all animals, but I think if I had to draw one animal all the time, I'd probably draw dogs. Plus there's like so many species or so many different kinds of dogs. And different dog-like species like coyotes, which I recently saw a coyote on my block. It was very hungry looking and kind of mangled. But our city is protecting the coyote, so there's like a coyote family living in my neighborhood. It's a little nerve-wracking, but you know, try to leave it alone and stuff. Okay, but it was like all mangled and definitely had fleas because it would run and then just sort of stop and scratch itself like a dog. Like a dog with fleas. Okay, so I kind of have my drawing. You can see it's pretty rough. And so now what I'm going to do is sort of paint in the negative shapes, so the dark shapes, or the dark space around the painting. And I'm probably only going to use my primary colors, just to keep things simple and just to kind of show you guys how much you can actually do with just your primaries. So I'm taking out some black. I've had this paint, fun fact, I've had this bottle of paint since 2003. So for, gosh, 21 years, right? Is that right? I'm like doing the math. Yeah, 21 years I've had this paint, and it's still good as new. Amazing. And you would think, like, Faye, how can you have this tiny little bottle of paint last so long? And it's because of the pigment quality. So the pigment is just so concentrated that you really don't need a lot. And yeah, I've had it for 21 years. Still using it, still good. So I'm making a more sort of muted dark blue for the background. Yeah, that paint is older than you. I know. Oh, so good. I have paint that's like probably 30 years old or even 40 years old that still works. Like I have Winsor Newton paints that I inherited from family that's like so old. I could probably say it's an antique. So as long as it, as long as you store it well and you take care of your paints, it lasts a really long time. Like I would think it would last longer than like a tablet. Right? Like, I mean, I have a Wacom tablet that's probably 20 years old too, and you could still use it, but it's very clunky. Whereas you could get a tablet for like 1/10 of the price that's better. But when it comes to paints, one of the benefits of getting paints not from the dollar store is that it still lasts. And I don't, I've had crafters acrylic, like in Canada where Wing Canvas is based. There's you can get crafters acrylic at the dollar store, and it's pretty good, but if you keep it on the shelf for like a couple of years, it starts to separate and then it starts to harden. So it really goes to show why good quality paints are a good investment. Just the shelf life is so much longer. Hi, Amir Adele. I would honestly feel like watercolor or paint hates me because I totally don't know how to use that. It doesn't hate you. It's just getting to know you. It doesn't hate you. It's like, I don't know if you've ever played a game or like a sport with somebody or even like, I don't know, tried to collaborate with somebody that you don't know very well, and it's just really awkward. It's the same thing with paints, right? It just takes a while for you to get to know each other. Just give it time. When I first started painting with acrylics, I was like, oh gosh, it's so frustrating. And then, because like coming from an oil painting background, when I paint with acrylics, I got so frustrated in the beginning because it dried so quickly and it never really let me finish blending. I found blending so challenging. And I think I had to really learn the medium. Whoops. I had to really like use it for a while to learn its properties. And I learned that with acrylics, you can blend it. You just have to add a medium to it called retarder medium, which slows down the drying of the paint. You can also use a stay wet palette. Have you guys heard of a stay wet palette? Anyway, stay wet palettes are awesome. Like for acrylics and oils, basically keeps your pigments, and it can keep acrylic wet for like 2 weeks. Longer than that, it starts to get moldy, but it's like incredible for keeping your acrylics moist for a very long time. And then if you figure out the right consistency with acrylic and you know, paint with it long enough, you'll also start to really like how versatile it is and might become your best friend. So I just want the other jellyfish to kind of be more in the background, so I'm just giving it a little bit of a tint with this remaining blue. Your tablet pen hates me? My tablet pen hates me. Yeah, I feel your pain. Sometimes the pens are just don't want to cooperate. So the reason why I like acrylic is because like you can do all sorts of cool things with it. It has all kinds of mediums that you could try, and it also allows you to sand it. I don't know if you've ever sanded acrylic. You can't really sand oil very well unless you're going to gesso your canvas. But with acrylics, if you made a mess or you know you don't really want your painting to be chunky or whatever it is, you can just sand it and paint on top of it. It's pretty cool and easy. And by the way, I used chalk to do my drawing. As you probably noticed, I do not use pencil. I used to, and then I got frustrated with it. And I was like, I hate using pencil to draw, because then, you know, if you don't want pencil marks, then you have to use your eraser, then you get eraser shavings all over, and it's very frustrating. So chalk is a wonderful tool. Because like, you can just, you know, brush it off. Like I could do this and it's gone. And also what I like about chalk is it doesn't allow me to put in too much detail, right? If I draw with pencil, I start to put too much stuff in, and then it is kind of unnecessary. And then I'm afraid to really get into it, like really paint like solid shapes, because I don't want to cover up my drawing. So I recommend using chalk. It doesn't have to be special chalk. It could just be, you know, white chalk that you get at the hardware store, the dollar store. It could be sidewalk chalk. It could be Conte or pastel if you have that. Whatever chalk works. So the first step would really be to figure out what kind of composition you want and start to work on the big picture. So even now I'm kind of thinking like, how do I want this jelly to stand out? I kind of want to get that in early. So I might sort of paint the outline. Quinn, what type of tablet do you have? Just curious. Because my XP pen I've had for 4 years now. I've never changed the nib. I mean, granted, I don't really use it as often as, you know, I might do traditional stuff, but... Oh, it's a Samsung laptop. Okay. So you use a Samsung pen. Okay, I can't say I've ever used that. I used to have a Surface Pro. And it was okay. How do you pick color palettes or tubes that are safe to use? Because sometimes they contain dangerous chemicals. That's a good question. We have a video on the channel just exactly that covers exactly that. It was released not so long ago. So if you go to our channel, we have a, I think it's like, if you just type in acrylic winged canvas, you'll probably come across it. I think the thumbnail says like, don't buy these colors or something like that. And basically any color that has cadmium in it, you want to avoid. But yeah, we have a video exactly about that. You can check that out after. How do I pick color palettes? So do you mean like, how do I pick which colors to buy, or how do I pick which colors to use in a painting? Oh, thanks, Vin, for linking it. You had no idea acrylics could get moldy. Anything that sits in water for too long is moldy. I suppose you could reduce your chances of it getting moldy by using like bottled water or distilled water. But when you use tap water and, you know, you're already kind of in there painting and, you know, you're putting water from your, you know, from your brush and other paints into it, it gets moldy. And also if you're putting paint back, like if you take out paint and then you try to put it back in the jar and that paint has water in it, it's going to contaminate the whole jar and make the whole jar moldy, which is really gross and stinky. So don't do that. Only save paint that has not been contaminated or touched by water. Azure Sparkle, welcome in. When I painted with acrylic, I used to add water to it to keep it from drying so fast. So instead of adding water, you can add what's called acrylic retarder medium. I don't have the bottle, but like I bought this huge bottle of it, and then I just kind of put it in a small jar so that I can take it with me places in a kit. But basically you can get this medium and it'll keep your paints wet for a long time. So you just like take it out and you mix it into your paints. And that's way better than water. If you add a lot of water, sometimes what happens is it starts to dissolve your pigment, right? Because water is essentially the solvent when you're painting with acrylic, right? A solvent would be like Gamsol or turpentine or something that you use for oils. It dissolves the paint. All water-based paints are dissolved with water, right? So the more water you put in, the more dissolved your paints would become. So let me show you a couple mediums. So these are some mediums that I use to make my paints a little bit more fluid. So you can use, this is glazing medium, this is matte varnish, they're very similar. You don't have to get all of them. So basically if you get like a a glazing medium or a matte medium or a gloss medium. I would get like a gloss medium and a matte medium so that you can get a satin finish if you want. And then you just kind of mix it in with your paints, and it will make the paint more fluid because it's clear acrylic, right? It's clear acrylic, which is what you want instead of water. Okay. So while I have these paints, I'm just going to move to a smaller brush and start to paint in these jellies. At least the main one. I gotta get that main one cleaned up. Otherwise my paints are gonna dry on me. And so when I use acrylic, you can see like I just kind of took out one color at a time. I tend to not take out all the colors because then they just dry too quickly before I can really you know, use them up. So typically I will take out white and then one color to work with. And then if I need more colors, I'll take that out and I start to work with flat colors. Keep those good questions coming. Don't you get afraid if colors may mix together by accident? Well, they're gonna mix together by accident, whether you like it or not. So, don't be afraid. Fear is not constructive to experimentation. You know, that's why, like, I always say if you're just starting out, just get some cheap paints that you're not afraid to mess up with, okay? Don't buy like the super expensive tubes of paint, and then what's going to happen is you're going to be afraid to use it. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, I have to, you know, I'm going to, you start to feel afraid that you're going to waste the paint, right? So buy paint that you're not afraid to waste. And experiment. Just remember, fear is not conducive to creativity. The only way I can see fear being helpful is if you're doing a piece about fear, like if you're, you know, if the subject of your piece is fear, then I think, you know, it might be good to get in that sort of mood. But other than that, I don't find it helpful at all. If you're struggling with painting your values and giving depth and volume, like, don't worry so much. I think the best bet is to simplify things, right? So you can kind of see this process so far. It already has depth, and I've used 3 colors. I started with the background, and then I kind of put in a darker color, and then I just used a little bit of that dark color just to push some things back, right? So it's pretty simple. I'm trying to focus on the big picture and not worry so much about all the details. Okay. So I think I'm going to start putting in her face, just painting like her face flat, as well as her hair and her body. And then I'll come back to the jellies, right? So I feel like I have some pretty good shapes now. So I'm gonna go in and work on the body. So I'm taking out some magenta. Magenta is really your true primary red. And you can make a really nice red using magenta and yellow. So if you had to get a set of primary colors, I would suggest getting the magenta instead of a red. Quinn says this is a very trust the process piece. Every piece is like that. You have to trust the process for every piece. And, you know, sometimes the pieces you struggle with the most end up being your best work. So, and like, when you say trust the process, it's also like not every piece you make is going to be amazing. At least not in the beginning. Because like, as you get better and better with your art, you're gonna hold yourself to higher standards as well, right? And so you may never think that your artwork is good enough because, you know, when you do create something good, you're like, okay, I can do it, so I can do it next time. But that's not always the case, so you just have to give yourself some grace. Don't be so hard on yourself. Art is supposed to be fun. If you're not having fun, go do something else that's fun. Even if you're just watching and doodling, like, that's okay. If watching this can kind of is just like relaxing, and you can, you know, you're cooking or whatever it is you are doing on this Saturday, that's okay too. Subject of the piece is fear. Draw something you're actively afraid of. You know what's so funny is I actually did a series about my fears and obsessions. I did it in school. It was one of my favorite projects. I had an instructor who is actually quite, he's pretty famous, pretty well known, based in LA. So I went to school, I went to Art Center in LA, and I had this illustration instructor. His name is Alex Gross. He does these epic, like highly rendered surrealist pieces. If you do a quick Google, you'll see his work. It's like amazing. He taught me how to render, and he really taught me how to be a good illustrator. But anyway, he assigned us this piece based on our fears and obsessions. So the theme was fear and obsession, and I created a series where my fear was at that time of insects. Like, I don't know what it is about insects. They are just, they creep me out. I mean, I guess all insects except maybe ladybugs, but like specifically cockroaches and hairy spiders. And so I decided to do this series of surrealist pieces of me dining with giant insects, and sort of like barbecuing with cockroaches, and it was really fun. I gotta say, it was really, really fun. I didn't think I would have so much fun. And I hope you see what I mean about the face. Like, I spent all that time drawing the face, but then it's much easier for me to just kind of paint in the color rather than trying to paint around my drawing, right? That would ruin barbecue for you. You know what's funny is I painted those pieces just for me. I didn't paint them to sell them. I didn't think anybody would buy a self-portrait of me with insects. But I actually sold 2 of the pieces to collectors, and they're hanging in people's living rooms. I still have 2 more in the series, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe somebody wanted to buy it. So, like, you never know. You gotta create for you. Gotta do what makes you happy. Otherwise, there's really no joy in creating, right? When you create, you have to be, in my opinion, you have to be like really open to experimenting, really open to like things going wrong, because they will always go wrong. And sort of like, that's kind of what made Bob Ross so special, is like when he made a mistake, he'd be like, oh, I'm just gonna turn into a bird. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Whatever. Right? Like he could totally be like, oh no, it's all ruined. And it all depends on how you react and how you deal with, you know, failure. Selling a self-portrait is wild. I know. My gosh. You know what? I'll share the if you remind me, I'll share the self-portraits. I have some images of them, but I'll share them in the Discord after the stream, so you can kind of see what they look like. But yeah, weird. I sold the cockroach piece, and I sold the I sold a piece where I was playing mahjong, which is like a Chinese game with like these little tiles. So I grew up, I'm an only child, so I kind of grew up watching my parents and family members play mahjong together, and so it's definitely part of my childhood. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna replace my family with cockroaches. And I think I even painted some like like Soviet style communist posters, or I collaged some in the background just as like a subtle kind of hint at like just trying to be funny, and it was pretty cool. So I sold that one at like a art sale in LA, and then the other one online through Etsy. I also think like weirdness, like being weird and embracing your quirks is the best thing you can do as a student. Like, we don't really get permission to be weird, right? Like, unless you're like at home by yourself with your dog or something, you'd be like, okay, I'm gonna do something really weird. But with art, the weirder you are, the more the more unique and memorable you are, and the more sort of personality you put into your work, or the more, I don't know, like I just feel like being weird, or having the permission to be weird, was like one of the best things, the most liberating things about art school. Because, you know, you don't have to be polite in your art. You don't have to please everybody. You just have to do something that feels authentic to you. Okay. Yeah, speaking of facing my fears, I'm still really scared of cockroaches. Oh, they're so gross. They're just gross because they're so fast and yuck. But anyway, I'm no longer afraid of spiders. How am I going to do the eyes? I am going to paint them with white paint and then black paint. That's how I'm going to paint the eyes. I haven't really thought about it too much. I'm just kind of waiting for my paint to dry. You can see that it's like not exactly flat, so I have to give it a little bit of time. So now I'm gonna try to paint in the hair. So the hair is this orange color, which I'm gonna make with my magenta and my yellow. The only thing I'm kind of struggling with right now is making my color opaque enough to cover up this blue. Because I kind of have to do a couple of layers in order to do that. So the best way to kind of make your paint more opaque is to add white. But then when you add white, it starts to become less bright, and it becomes more of this sort of peachy color. Mom says it's my turn to be weird. Who's mom? Your mom? Are you calling me mom? Joe Road says, I have a Jim Harrison print on my wall that I bought at his gallery in Denmark, South Carolina. Not sure what the medium was, but I think it was acrylic. You know, it's hard to tell with prints. Like acrylics and oils can look exactly the same. Like, I don't think you would know unless you smelled it or something, right? Like, you can get acrylic to look just like oil. So it's okay. Sometimes I can't tell the difference either. Acrylics have gotten so good that like, I used to paint portraits and stuff in oil, and now I'll paint it in acrylic. With like mediums and different ways to kind of keep the paint wet and blendable. Or sometimes I'll start a painting in acrylic and I'll finish it in oil. So you can actually do that. Like, you can actually start a painting in acrylic, finish it in oil. I do that all the time just because it cuts down on the drying time. Okay, Quinn, what's the best way to kill a cockroach? Because I just, like, hit it with a shoe, but, I haven't figured out the best way to get rid of them. Luckily, there's not a lot of roaches where I live. But yeah, I've seen the roaches in New York, and the ones in Taiwan actually fly. That is really scary. Like, I'm just like, okay, I'm never going to Taiwan. I have relatives there, but I don't think I'll ever go because I do not want to be near a flying cockroach. Ugh, horrible. How can being weird be unique? Well, the definition of weird, I think, is just like non-conventional, not normal. So you can't really be average and normal and unique at the same time. So I think being weird is, first of all, it's fun, at least for me. And you know, you don't become memorable by doing what everyone else is doing, right? And that's kind of like my take on AI as well. Like, yes, AI is creating art and all that stuff, but like it can only fake weirdness. Like, it can't make something authentic. It doesn't really, at least not yet. It doesn't have emotions, right? At least not yet. It can change, who knows? But like, you know, everything that you sort of generate, if you are, you know, trying out AI tools or whatever, like if you generate something, chances are it's going to be very average because it's learned, it's learning from, you know, everything it's scraping off the internet is kind of like not as, it just can't compare. So I don't really think we need to be that afraid of it. How do you paint things on other paint that has already, like, you know what I mean? I'm not sure what I know what you mean. Palmetto bugs. Oh, I don't know what those are. Bigger than cockroaches. Oh, gross. Oh gosh. The only time I can look at a cockroach is if it's behind glass. Like at a zoo or something. Okay, so I kind of want to talk about the colors that are sort of outside the bubble. So this is inside, and so like outside, if you're looking through the bubble, it's going to be a lot less saturated and probably less dark as well. So that is actually too dark. So I'm going to lighten it up with some white. But basically you kind of take a little bit of the blue and a little bit of the color that is part of the character, right? And you add some white to it and you kind of desaturate it a little bit. So I think that's a little bit better. So yeah, I mean, we're almost in Halloween season. So if you are someone who is motivated by fear, I think a lot of us are motivated by fear. At least that's what the algorithms have learned. I listened to this amazing podcast yesterday about how the algorithms are have picked up on what makes people stay on platforms, social media platforms, longer. And it's fear, I think, okay, it's fear, greed, and hate. So sad. Hate, fear, and greed, which is why we see so much of it on social media. Which is why I'm on a social media cleanse. I have not even opened Instagram for, oh gosh. Last time I opened it, I had like 6 messages from friends that I didn't realize from like June. I was like, oh no, I'm so sorry. But yeah, I just gotta stay off social media now because I find it is just such a time waster. So I limit it to when I'm in the bathroom and, you know, when I'm having a snack. I'll take like 10 minutes to sort of check my feed. I try not to click on anything hateful because then I'm just going to see more of it. So anyway. When I'm in the bathroom, yep. Yep. My friends must know, oh, Faye's finally responding to me. I messaged her like 6 hours ago. She's probably in the bathroom. Okay. So I haven't put in any of the lines yet. I'm probably going to do that last. Right now I'm just kind of focused on getting my shapes in before anything else. So Ponyo has this like white patch on her belly, but because we are in the ocean, right, that white patch is going to be blue. It's not going to be white, right? If you take something white and you put it in the ocean, right, unless it's like at the surface or something, it's not going to be white. So if you paint it white, it's not going to look very realistic. It's just your eyes are just going to go right there. So you always want to consider your background when you're working with white. Yeah, algorithms are so toxic. And you know what? Like, we are not actually punishing the algorithms. Like, with freedom of, like, Personally, I think that if somebody posts something racist or hateful or whatever it is on social media, you know, should they be banned? I don't think so, because people say stupid things all the time, right? And like they'll probably regret it or whatever, but I think it's the algorithms that we really need to double check, that we really need to regulate more so that they don't promote that kind of stuff. But nobody's really holding these companies accountable, because the companies just tell the algorithms, our goal is to get people to stay on the platform, get them addicted to the platform. So guess what they're doing is they're finding, you know, just the most outrageous content that's not true to get you to stay on the platform, which is really sad. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's a cycle of hate. I know, it's so sad. Especially kind of around election time too. It can be really just like a rough time online. So I'm just gonna try to stay off of it. You painted the background blue. So how did you paint the light colors on it? Well, I'm using acrylic. So acrylic is opaque. If you are using watercolor, you can't do this method. If you're using watercolor, you would have to, like if you wanted to do the background, like you would do a drawing and then flood the background and then kind of remove the parts that you want to paint a different color. Especially because like with watercolor, the only way you could get an opaque color on top of watercolor is by using gouache. So gouache is really just an opaque watercolor. Acrylic paint dries really quickly. Yeah, it does, which is a good thing and a bad thing, right? Okay, so I'm gonna look at my sketch. Whoops. I'm gonna look at my sketch of Ponyo here, and then just kind of figure out where I want to put the eyes. So you can see I'm using kind of this desaturated white. It has a little bit of the blue in it. So it's almost the same value as the skin. And then I'm adding a little bit more white to it so that it is seen before the other patch of white on the belly. And then I have to go in and paint the skin again because it's a little blotchy, right? You can see it's not fully there yet. So sometimes you have to do a few coats and just exercise your patience muscle. Okay, so for the mouth, I really like this, like I said, like a mouth that kind of shows the wonder of Ponyo, who's this curious, probably 5-year-old girl. And she's curious, but she's also a little feisty. Like, she's not well behaved. She's she's kind of a rebel. She's a little bit of a rebel. She's stubborn. And I find that Miyazaki likes this type of character. Like, first of all, he's one of the first animators that always, or that tends to like children, like little girls, as the protagonists, whereas in a lot of anime before that, it was mostly male characters as the protagonist. But the girl characters are always like, they're not, you know, princesses. They're not always you know, your typical girl. They are, or at least like the girls that you see in traditional Disney movies, like they're adventurous and disobedient and stubborn. Your painting is finally coming along. That's awesome. Glad to hear it. Okay. So, you can see I haven't done any of the line art yet. I'm probably not going to put black lines around everything, even though I could. I'm probably not going to. I'm going to, I mean, I'll paint in the eyes. And that's just kind of using a very thin brush like this. I really like this brush. Like, it was very inexpensive. The set, I think, cost me maybe $10 or something. The entire set, and it came with like 7 brushes, which is really a good deal. So I didn't have high expectations for them, but they work. Okay, so there's one. If you don't have a very thin brush, you could also just stamp the eyes using the back of your brush. Okay, so with acrylic, you kind of just have to work on one part at a time and then let it dry. So like, I can see that I have to repaint the body because it's a little bit blotchy, right? So then I just need to go back in with my magenta. Trying to find some space on my palette here. So the second time I paint the magenta, it should even itself out. The first time is more just kind of like covering up the blue and what's underneath. The second time, see that? It's a lot more opaque. So sometimes with acrylic, as with any medium, you just have to be patient, and not rush it. Like, sometimes it takes a couple of coats to get it to look flat and smooth. Like, this is a very cartoony style, so it's very flat, right? Lends itself very well to acrylics. Getting really focused here. So if you have a gunky brush, like my brush is getting kind of gunky, you can use your palette knife and just scrape the paint off. Spunky is the word. Yeah, you're right. Ponyo. Ponyo is a very spunky character, for sure. As is like a lot of Studio Ghibli characters. Hey, Rich, welcome. Thanks for saying hi. Do you ever do any mixed media art? Yeah, actually, I'm a mixed media artist. I did a stream where, let's see if I have the painting. So I painted this guy in a stream. You can find it on the channel. It's probably, if you look up Vaquita, this was the endangered animal stream. So this is mixed media. It's acrylic and collage and plastic and avocado packaging you may recognize. So yeah, I do a lot of mixed media stuff. That's actually my favorite way to work. I love collage. I love just like trying out new things. I kind of get bored painting the same thing over and over again, or painting with the same medium. I'm very experimental. And that's why I love teaching, is because I get to try new things with my students. You know, because if you're going to be an illustrator, like a professional illustrator, I find that a lot of clients and a lot of the industry expects you to have a certain style, right? They expect you to they expect to commission you and get something that they totally expect because they've seen your style before. And I found that kind of hard and limiting, to be honest. Like, I'm always trying new things and taking risks instead of just doing what works and what sells. And I recently saw, have you guys seen Bohemian Rhapsody? About Queen? Well, specifically about Freddie Mercury, but about the band in general. So they were a band that would always push the envelope. They would make an album and they'd be like, okay, the next time we make an album is going to be totally different. We're going to incorporate like opera and we're a rock and roll band, right? Like that band, I was so inspired when I watched the movie. It's such a good movie. But anyway, it really goes to show that like if you don't take risks, then you know, you're not really growing. Oh my god, yeah, they do. It's called Bohemian Rhapsody. It's on Disney Plus. So it's such a good movie. I didn't think I would enjoy it so much, but yeah, it's so inspiring to see artists, especially musicians, right? Like that movie has nothing to do with visual art, but it's a movie about creativity and about collaboration and about taking risks. And you know, that's the kind of thing that I find really inspiring. Okay, so I'm going to try to do the line art on the eyes. And I think I'm going to do the line art in like a blue instead of a black. Just because like I'm not going to do line art everywhere. I'm just going to do it selectively. So I kind of don't want it to be super, super contrasty. I have to really focus here. I feel like with the eyes, like that's probably the only part I would outline, just because it's so so far where you want the viewer to look first, right? And it kind of looks weird if I outline some parts and don't outline others. So I'm gonna have to find a way to make it work. You could also do your line art with like a marker or acrylic markers. My gosh, I should have used acrylic markers. What am I doing using a brush? What am I doing? There is a better tool. Well, even my acrylic markers would probably not be as thick as this. I'm sorry, as thin as this. I do have a set of Poscas that I very rarely use. What is the name of the movie again? Bohemian Rhapsody. It was so inspiring because, you know, as artists, sometimes we have some tricky decisions, right? It's like you got to do what's authentic, you got to do what feels right for you, but you know, you also have to make a living, right? So it's a challenge to balance what works, what the market wants, and then what, you know, will ultimately make you happy and fulfilled. So there's this scene in the movie, in Bohemian Rhapsody, not Ponyo. But anyway, there's a scene in the movie where the band makes this, they want the song Bohemian Rhapsody to be the cover that is released for the album. And it's like 6 minutes long, and it doesn't make any sense, and it's like such a weird song, right? It was so ahead of its time, but I think the investor or the business guy was like, no, because there's never been a single that has been longer than 3 minutes, and this is 6 minutes. I'm not doing it. Let's go with something else. And then the band is like, they have a very hard decision to make, and I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but it's really good because it's about integrity too, right? Artistic integrity. So far I think this blue line is a lot less flat than the black lines. So I'm gonna continue using the blue lines to just kind of outline the hair. And when you're doing lines like this, you might need to add some water or some medium to it. I'm just adding water because my paints are pretty thick and also like pretty good quality, so I don't really have the fear of it breaking apart. Hey, Ryan Mead. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna put in some other more strategic lines, like where the arm is versus, you know, where her belly is. So she's kind of got this these fin-like arms that sort of end here. So I'm gonna put those in, just some overlaps. And then she's got this belly, really kind of cute belly. Like, I wasn't really gonna outline it, but because the face is outlined, I kind of feel like I have to outline it a little bit, at least. What? Brian, how do you pronounce mead incorrectly? I'll tell you what, everybody has growing up and going to school, everybody always pronounced my name incorrectly. They would say fee instead of fey, and I'm like, really? Like it rhymes with like way, and it rhymes with like all these other words that are spelt with EI. I don't get it, but yeah. I know what it's like. Okay, I'm just gonna finish up the details on the face. And then go back to putting in more of the jellyfish texture. I'm just kind of wiping off some of the chalk that is remaining. And let's put in some of the jellyfish texture. Let's see. Okay, so I guess the trick to painting these jellyfish is to figure out like where the inside is versus the outside, and then just putting in some details that suggest what they are without overpowering the piece. Oh, thanks, Quinn. I like your name too. You have an OC with the same name. Awesome. Okay. Let's move on to the jellyfish. So first of all, I want to make this jellyfish here a little bit more buoyant looking and a little bit shiny, I guess. So there's no light source in the actual reference picture, but I'm gonna attempt to make it up. So I'm just kind of making like a lighter blue, and then I'm gonna put in some of the highlights. So usually light comes from the top, right? Especially with oceans. And then generally wherever there is light, right, it kind of echoes in other places, but it usually will, like if there's a reflection on this side and this was a perfect sphere, it would also have a little bit of reflection on the opposite side. So it's usually diagonal. But because it's a cartoon, I'm just gonna keep it very simple and just kind of have one highlight. I don't think it needs more. I don't really want to complicate it too much. And then I'm going to start to put in some of the darks. So the darks are similar to the background color. I just have to... Uh-oh. See? I just mixed all my colors there on my brush. That stuff happens. It's okay. All right. Just kind of making a darker blue. It's funny, if you like interact with kids and stuff and something happens, you know, if I find that if you make a big deal, then the kids also will react how you're reacting, right? So like if I did that and I you know, I'm grumpy about it, then it's sort of it sort of affects my mood and everything else. So I just kind of try to embrace whatever happens and accept that this is not perfect. This is just supposed to be fun, and messing up is part of the process, right? Okay. So with the jellyfish, again, I don't really think I have time to do that much detail, so I'm just going to focus on, like, where's the bottom, where's the top. So where's the inside? This is the inside of the jellyfish. I'm just kind of gonna put a sharp line towards the top. Keep it very low contrast, right? Because you want the high contrast parts to be here, right? I'm going to keep everything else very, very low contrast. If you're ever struggling with art and you are getting frustrated, just remind yourself that it's all about having fun. So if you are not having fun, it's probably time to take a break. Go do something else. Come back to it. Sometimes if you're in like a bad mood or just kind of in a stink, or maybe you're just having a not so productive day, it can make your painting even worse, right? It can make something that like was good, and it can overwork it, or it can generally ruin it. So sometimes it's better to step away. Other things you can do, you could turn your piece upside down. Look at it in a different perspective. Sometimes that freshens things up, allows you to see some of the mistakes that you've made. At least I didn't drop it on the actual painting. Yeah, true. Although you could probably wipe it off for the most part. Depends on if it's dry or not, right? Okay, so for the jellyfish, for the tentacles, I'm using a filbert. I should switch to a flat brush because filberts sometimes don't do the lines very well. Filbert brushes, if you don't know, are round at the top. So you can see this brush is a little bit round, right? Here, you can see it's like a rounded top, whereas a brush like this is a flat top, so it just gives you a little bit better control and better edges. So I'm gonna use my small brush here. I don't like to use small brushes to mix colors because they don't really hold enough paint to do that. But I like small brushes for applying the paint. Would a very subtle white outline around the jellyfish help imply transparency? Maybe. I think if it was subtle enough, yes, it would. Again, if I'm not sure and I don't really want to risk trying it on my painting, I would probably take a picture of this painting and test it out digitally. I just decided to put some longer tentacles in. That was just something that I was like, maybe I'm gonna try this. And usually like jellyfish will all kind of drift in the same direction, whereas this one I find I kind of had it in a different direction. I think I'm just gonna leave it though and focus on the non-drifting tentacles. I'm also adding a little bit of the background color to the jellies that are a little further away. And yeah, I'm probably not going to put too much more detail in the jellies just because I don't have that much time, but the jellies do have other details in them that I've just kind of left out. And you know what? The art of leaving things out is probably something we don't really think about because we always want to put everything that we see inside, right? But sometimes leaving stuff out can be better, can be like a better decision. Whatever serves your subject the best, right? Yeah, Azure Sparkle, you're right. I was just like thinking, I thought that they would drift in the same direction because of the current, but if it's like deep ocean, or if like there's no movement in the water, you're right. It probably would not drift and they can go in different directions. So I just left it. I'm thinking about all those jellyfish displays at the aquariums. And like, yeah, you're right. They don't always drift. Thank goodness, because I didn't really want to change it. So I think the last thing is I'm going to put some highlights on the other jellyfish, but I just want to make sure that I don't overwhelm. I don't want to overwhelm my subject either. All right, lovely people. Hopefully you had fun painting along with me. If you're watching this after the stream, you can always slow it down, go back, pause me, speed me up. And it's always good to figure out how you would change something. So, I could copy this piece exactly like the reference picture. But, I really wanted to capture, again, like her sense of wonder and amazement, because I think it captures just her personality a lot more. So, yeah. If you want to support our mission of making free arts education, please join us on the Patreon. Support us on Patreon. you can get access to live critiques with me as well as our other instructors, which is an amazing way to learn by yourself. So if you don't have that much time and your schedule's all over the place, being a Patreon member gives you critiques when you want it on the Discord. And, it's not just our instructors, but it's the amazing talent that is our community as well. So if you want free advice, as you can join our streams or you can join the Discord. I highly recommend it. You can get all of our files as well after the fact. So thanks again for supporting us and for our lovely members. Some of them are in the chat. So Quinn, I know we chat a lot in the members chat, and we have definitely worked on a lot of stuff together. So thanks again for your incredible support. Shout out to all of our incredible patrons who support us and help keep making free arts education. So again, if you want to take classes with us, classes, it is definitely a good time to sign up now, because if you sign up now, this is our fall term. It actually began today. So today, if you signed up for a Saturday class, today was the first class. My first class is Thursday. It's this Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I'm teaching drawing foundations. Drawing foundations is what you want to be learning if you are struggling with any type of art. Always going back to the foundations is something that is super, super important. That's kind of why I'm teaching drawing foundations too. So if you want to study realism, if you want to learn drawing techniques like perspective, anatomy, all that good stuff, join my Thursday class. You can join live or asynchronously. So that's it for today. Thank you so much. And thanks to our lovely mods and everybody who joined us live today. I will be posting this artwork on the Discord. And if you want access to cool free resources, as well as the artwork from streams and our notes, I will see you on the Discord. All right, guys. Have a lovely weekend. Josh will be joining you tomorrow at the same time. He's going to be animating a background. Super cool. If you're into animation or you just kind of want to see his illustration process, he's going to be working digitally in Krita. You will see him tomorrow. All right, take care. Have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.